Try before we die.
Did you know the whole time we're not on camera, we just sit here in the bar waiting for our next recording date, trying hard to absorb more Scotch whiskey knowledge through osmosis, imbibing, and rolling around in the empty bottles. WTF, Whiskey, today's fact. Today we thought we'd learn a little bit more about the term on the Scotch whiskey bottle, natural color, or no color added. I mean, someone is bound to ask you what that means, especially if they view you as an expert in Scotch whiskey. And if you say, I don't know, you are now the fool, not them. And that's a terrible transition to be a part of. So listen up. First, coloration of beverages is extremely common across the spectrum of both alcoholic and non-alcoholic beverages. In the Scotch whiskey world, the common term for coloration agent is spirit of caramel. But in the chemical world, it is known as E150A, blah, blah, blah. But if you want to sound super smart, you can dazzle folks with this tidbit. E150A is different from E150 as it has no ammonium or sulfite reactants. Whatever. Scotch whiskey is colored for two distinct reasons, normalization or standardization, and deception, darkening. Normalization or standardization is when the spirit of caramel is added to the final product to ensure a consistent appearance in the releases that have deviations of color due to the variations of natural color imparted from the casks. In other words, the natural world is full of spectrum outcomes, and the mass market consumer is often fooled into believing that a product with the same name should always look the same. This is why a Big Mac in Idaho tastes and looks the same as a Big Mac in Florida. Normalization, standardization. Darkening. The spirit of caramel is added to certain releases of Scotch whiskey, perhaps younger whiskeys, perhaps whiskeys that have come from casks that are all out of color due to reuse and reuse and reuse. Either way, darkening a whiskey can encourage a consumer to see a more well-aged whiskey. Some of these things just illustrate how gullible the average consumer is. Know your stuff, and you can then understand the nuances between batches, bottlings, and what is both on and not on the label. In other words, the more informed you are, the less you need to be fooled. Finally, I'm happy to report that more and more distilleries are moving away from colorization, allowing for the subtle differences in whiskey color to exist, trusting the consumer to understand why. Some of these distilleries who have pledged to avoid colorization are Arran, Edradour, Glenfarclas, Glen Scotia, and Springbank. There are more too. Read your labels. And that's whiskey, today's fact, the water of life.
With a bearded man and a British guy.